everything was new to them. Like you had the peacocks on the other side of the fence, and then you had the fallow deer on the other side, and then you have the wind who was blowing in the leaves and grass.
Okay, so you have some Arctic foxes here.
Yes.
Where do they come from?
So we have two Arctic foxes. They come from the nature, actually. The Norwegian Institution of Nature Research. They collect them from the wild when they're puppies, and then they bring them to this breeding station to produce different litters with female Arctic foxes, which they then put back into nature. And so after a male Arctic fox is finished breeding, he needs to be placed somewhere. We have an agreement with the institution to keep them in an enclosure with us until they're old and finished.
If you hadn't this agreement about taking in these male foxes, where will they go?
I think they would probably be put down.
Okay.
Because they can't go back out to the wild because of the risk of inbreeding. And
what are the names of the foxes that you have? The Arctic foxes that you have?
They're called Birk and Bjarne. It's really Norwegian names.
Why there is this project about breeding Arctic foxes?
That's because the Arctic fox population in Scandinavia, so the Norwegian and Swedish one, is considered threatened. So the government is trying to repopulate Norway with Arctic foxes because they were almost extinct in Norway for about a couple of years ago.
Why is the population declining?
Because of different factors. So one factor is overhunting. So they were hunted quite severely for their fur. Another factor is that the red foxes are starting to move higher up to the mountains due to overpopulation. And so they would take over the Arctic fox den and maybe steal their food and just really push them out of the way. Also, the lack of food for maintaining litters and stuff like that is also.
And do you know if after this breeding program the population started to grow again?
Yes, it has grown by around 100 and 200. I'm a bit unsure about the numbers. I have to check it on the websites. But I know the Norwegian population is about 200, 200 to 300, I think. So it hasn't grown by a lot. It's only a couple of individuals, really.
Arctic foxes are declining in Scandinavia, but they are not in other parts of the world.
No.
Why is it so?
I think it's due to the hunting that was going on in the early 1900s and late 1800s. I think that gave the population a really hard start, and then these other factors came in, and also when you have like Svalbard, where they also have Arctic foxes, I don't think they have red foxes there because it's a remote island. So
if they go extinct in Scandinavia, we still have them as a species in other parts of the world. Why is this conservation program important? I mean, do they have an important role in the ecosystem?
Yes, Arctic fox population also help to keep the rodent population down. So if it could have different consequences if you remove a single species from the ecosystem.
For the rodent situation, wouldn't it be equivalent to just have the red foxes?
For the rodents?
Yeah, I mean, if they both eat rodents and the role of the ecosystem of Arctic foxes is eating rodents?
Yeah. I'm not sure why.
Okay, don't worry.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any other Arctic foxes in other parks around Norway?
Especially in Norway, it's quite common to have the fur farm version of the Arctic fox, just because you're not allowed to take the Arctic fox from the nature in Norway. They've been protected since the mid-1900s, so most parks haven't been able to start with a population of Arctic foxes in captivity. So the only opportunity to get them is to get them leased out from the Norwegian Institute of Nature Research.
So the foxes living at your park are wild-born, and they are, in some sense, the true ones?
Yeah, the true form.
While other parks have the full-bred Arctic foxes. What are the differences?
They are more fluffy, so they have more fur, and they also look a bit different in the face. They don't have like a pointy fox face. So they're simply bred for the quality of the fur and not for qualities that would benefit them in the nature.
And we saw earlier that you have also silver foxes that came from a fur farm. Can you tell us about their story?
Yeah. So the fur farm industry in Norway is closing down. So all the people having fur farms have to get rid of the animals and close down the business. And so we reached out to a man who had a fur farm and asked if we could have his silver foxes. So they are still owned by him, but they get to live in our park until they're old. And
the fact that they are owned by him, can, for example, can he claim them and take them back?
Yes. So we have an agreement that he gets to get them back when they're old, and we can't no longer live in our park because they're going in a museum. In just south of here. I think it's a museum that has to do with like Norwegian industry, so like fur farms and everything. And so they want the bodies of the animals to keep them in the museum.
And why specifically the two that you have?
Because they are the last ones in Norway.
Regarding the silver foxes, what are the names of the two that you have?
They are called Gabriel and Randi.
What differences in behavior can you notice between the silver foxes that you have and the Arctic foxes?
So the Arctic foxes behave more like wild foxes compared to our silver foxes, because they've been domesticated through a couple of generations probably. And they're also used to close contact with humans, so they don't really show a lot of fear towards us, which makes them quite, I would say, domesticated, compared to the Arctic foxes, who have been born outside in the wild and haven't really had any early life connection to humans.
When these silver foxes came came to you from the first time, where they were living before?
They lived on a fur farm in Orkanger, just south of Trondheim.
Yep. So they were like caged in a usual farm
they
cage.
lived in a cage, but I know that the owner had a harness on them and took them on walks.
Did they look happy when they came to this huge enclosure that you have for them?
Yes, when they were put in the enclosure, they were quite tired for many, many days, because they probably, first of all, didn't have a lot of muscles, because they haven't really been used to a lot of movement. But secondly, everything was new to them. Like, you had the peacocks on the other side of the fence, and then you had the fallow deer on the other side, and then you have the wind who was blowing in the leaves and grass. So they were jumping everywhere and chasing insects, and just seemed to really enjoy nature.
Yeah, and was it like nice to see them enjoying this new life?
Yes, very. They were quite entertaining to us and the guests, because they were, I think, the animal that moved around the most that summer, because they were exploring and having fun, while the other ones were kind of having a chill time. Yeah.